They called it toxic because they no longer remembered what it felt like to be protected, to be led, to be anchored in the storm of emotion. The world did not reject masculinity because it was evil. It rejected masculinity because it forgot its nature. What the world now calls toxic is often nothing more than raw, untamed strength in a man who was never taught how to use it. And when a man's strength has no aim, when his fire has no purpose, it burns everything, himself included. The masculine is not toxic, it is forgotten. Forgotten in the broken homes, where no father speaks. Forgotten in the schools, where discipline is punished but weakness is praised. Forgotten in a culture that teaches boys to apologize for being boys before they even understand what that means. And so, what do they become? Not peaceful, not wise, just hollow, just domesticated, just confused men trying not to offend anyone, while secretly hating themselves for how much of their soul they had to amputate just to be accepted. A man without access to his masculine core is not safer. He's more dangerous, because his fire turns inward. Repressed rage doesn't vanish. It simmers, until one day it explodes. And when it does, they say, "See, this is why masculinity must be destroyed." But they never ask what happens when it is ignored. They never ask what happens when men are raised without role models, without discipline, without sacred purpose. What happens when a generation is taught that assertiveness is aggression, that protectiveness is control, that ambition is oppression? You don't get peace. You get passivity and passive aggression. You get emotional chaos, mental collapse, and men who either dominate to feel alive or submit and call it virtue. You want to know what true masculinity is? It is not cruelty. It is not control. It is not domination. True masculinity is clarity, the ability to hold a line when everything around you is spinning, the spine to say no when the world says yes, the silence to listen without reacting, the strength to carry weight without demanding praise, the presence to make others feel safe, not because you're harmless, but because you're disciplined. The masculine does not seek attention. It seeks direction. It is not loud. It is steady. Not everyone understands this, because most people were not raised by a man. They were raised around men who were broken, men who were there but not present, men who worked but never taught, men who exploded or disappeared. And so the image of masculinity became deformed, reduced to either brute force or cartoonish stoicism. But real masculinity is not about never crying. It's about knowing when your tears have purpose, not about dominating others, but never letting yourself be dominated by chaos. This is why the masculine is hated, not because it's harmful, but because it threatens the illusion of comfort. Masculinity stands up when others sit down. It sees danger before it arrives. It says, "I will take responsibility," even when it wasn't his fault. The masculine is structure, and structure is always the enemy of those who thrive in disorder. There is a war against masculinity, but it is not a war fought with weapons. It is a war fought with narratives. It teaches boys to feel ashamed for wanting to win. It tells men that protection is oppression. It punishes confidence and rewards compliance. And when men collapse into uncertainty, when they lose their clarity, when they no longer know who they are, they become easier to control. That's the point. The weak man does not threaten the system. He becomes part of it. But a man who remembers, a man who stands tall, who speaks clearly, who knows his values, who fears God more than he fears society, that man cannot be bought. He cannot be manipulated. he cannot be owned, and so they will call him dangerous. But the truth is, he is the most necessary man in the world, because without him, there is no shelter, no boundary, no order, just noise, just desire, just emotional anarchy wrapped in spiritual emptiness. He is the wall, the gate, the one who says, "Not here," and the world needs that more than ever. When the masculine dies, the world becomes soft, but not kind, weak, but not peaceful, polite, but not honest. The air becomes thick with performance, but void of presence. And this is what we've normalized. Men who nod when they want to roar, who smile when they want to scream, who fold their shoulders inward so no one feels threatened by their existence. We are raising men to fear their own nature, to flinch at their instincts, to bury their voice under layers of psychological guilt. But guilt does not make you good. It makes you manipulable. Real masculinity is not the enemy of love. It is the container that holds it. It is the riverbank that allows emotion to flow without flooding. Feminine energy without masculine order becomes overwhelming. Masculine energy without feminine grace becomes rigid. They were designed to dance, not to compete. But we've turned them into enemies. We tell women to become men, and men to become less. And then we wonder why no one is happy, why relationships are fractured, why families fall apart like sandcastles under rising tides. The masculine does not need to dominate the feminine. It needs to protect her. And in doing so, it protects itself. Because without the feminine, man forgets what he's fighting for. But without the masculine, woman forgets where the boundaries are. Together, they are sacred. Apart, they are chaos and confusion pretending to be freedom. And that's the lie. Freedom without form, emotion without discipline, pleasure without sacrifice. It sounds good on paper, but in the real world, it produces weak men, bitter women, fatherless children, and a society drunk on dopamine and delusion. Do not mistake gentleness for virtue. A man who is incapable of causing harm is not virtuous. He is harmless. Virtue is when you can cause harm, but choose not to. That is mastery. That is what true masculinity is. A sword sheathed. A lion who chooses silence. A king who listens before he speaks. But we don't raise kings anymore. We raise consumers. Boys who chase comfort instead of purpose. Boys who have never built anything, protected anything, endured anything. And so, their strength is imaginary, and their masculinity, a mask they wear in gyms and discard in front of women. We must return to the sacred masculine, not as a costume, not as performance, but as identity. To be a man is to carry weight, not just physical, but emotional, spiritual, ethical. It is to feel the pressure of responsibility and say, "Let it be mine." It is to know that every decision you make ripples through generations, and that your strength was never meant for you. It was meant to be given, to protect, to provide, to lead, to endure. But no one teaches this anymore. And that's why men are angry. Not because they hate women, not because they want power, but because deep inside, they know they were meant for more than just surviving and obeying. They were meant to build families, build legacies, build truth into a world of lies. But how can a man build if he's never been taught to stand? And how can he stand if everything in him has been labeled a threat? This is the quiet despair of modern masculinity. Strength without purpose. Desire without direction. Anger without a channel. Fire without a forge. So we must remember, not what masculinity used to be, but what it truly is beneath the dust of propaganda. It is presence, power, patience, precision, discipline, devotion, duty. It is the spine of civilization. And when it falls, everything falls with it. They tried to redefine manhood into something manageable, something quiet, something that doesn't ask too many questions, doesn't take up too much space, doesn't feel too deeply, doesn't want too strongly. But masculinity was never meant to be manageable. It was meant to be honorable, and honor is not convenient. It doesn't shift with trends. It doesn't kneel to comfort. It kneels only to truth. And truth is dangerous in a world built on lies. The truth is, men are not broken by masculinity. They are broken by the absence of it. Boys grow into confused men when no one teaches them to master their instincts. They grow into bitter men when they are punished for their natural aggression instead of being taught how to aim it. They grow into lost men when no one shows them how to channel their pain into purpose. Masculinity is not rage, it's restraint. It is not control over others, it is control over oneself. But restraint must be taught. Self-control must be modeled. Discipline must be lived. And where are the models today? Where are the fathers who command respect by how they walk through the world, not how they talk? Where are the uncles, the mentors, the elder men who speak little but say everything with one look? We have influencers, not elders. Celebrities, not sages. Popularity has replaced wisdom, and men follow avatars instead of archetypes. And so the masculine is forgotten, and, in its place, confusion. Men who think being alpha means shouting louder. Men who think being dominant means being cruel. Men who think leading is manipulation, that strength means silence, that emotion is weakness. Number A, real man feels, but doesn't fold. He weeps without shame, but never lets his pain turn him bitter. He loves with intensity, but does not lose himself in that love. He builds boundaries, not because he is cold, but because he understands the price of living without them. You want to know what a masculine man looks like? He's not the loudest in the room. He's the one who could destroy everything, but chooses to protect it. He doesn't need to win every argument. He doesn't flinch when insulted. He's not triggered by opinion. Why? Because he knows who he is. And when a man knows who he is, the world cannot shake him. He becomes immovable, like a mountain. The winds of culture can scream, but he remains. The waves of criticism can crash, but he doesn't bow. His strength isn't just in his body. It's in his being. And when men remember that, the world changes, not because they control others, but because they control themselves. And from that control comes peace, because true masculinity is peaceful, not because it's weak, but because it's dangerous and under control. It's a loaded weapon in a locked room. It's the storm that doesn't need to show itself unless it must. It's the hand that holds the sword, but keeps it sheathed. This is what the world fears, and this is what the world needs. Not more passive men, not more agreeable boys, but grounded, awakened, forged men. Men who walk with their head high not from ego, but from duty. Men who don't hide their strength or flaunt it, but offer it to something greater than themselves. Because when men rise, families heal. When men rise, women feel safe again. When men rise, children learn what it means to grow up with standards. Not just feelings, but principles. Direction, consequence, devotion. That's the missing piece. The masculine doesn't scream. It stands. And in a world collapsing under noise, stillness is revolutionary. A man who remembers what he is becomes a living contradiction to the modern world. He doesn't chase approval, yet people follow him. He doesn't seek power, yet his presence commands it. He doesn't fight for attention, yet eyes turn when he walks into the room. Why? Because he radiates something primal, something ancient, a kind of knowing, a kind of weight, the kind of energy that says, "You are safe around me, and you will not get away with nonsense." He doesn't just make others feel safe. He makes the world real again. The masculine presence reminds people of consequence, of direction, of depth. It breaks the illusion that life is just entertainment and indulgence. And because of that, it is hated by the weak, mocked by the addicted, feared by those who profit from confusion, but loved deeply, silently, by those who still carry truth in their bones. And that's the irony. The very culture that ridicules masculinity secretly craves it. Women ache for it. Not the fake, polished Instagram version, but the real thing. The kind that holds eye contact without blinking. The kind that can fix things, that remembers what it says, that moves with purpose, that walks away from drama without apology, that builds, that protects, that chooses discipline over dopamine, that turns off the screen and faces the storm. Masculinity isn't just an energy, it's a sacrifice. A man must give something up to become a man. He must give up the comfort of blame, the luxury of victimhood, the softness of emotional indulgence. He must burn what is childish inside him so he can carry what is required of him. And no one will celebrate this sacrifice. Not in the beginning. They will mock him for it. They will call him harsh, stoic, controlling. But eventually, they will come to him when the world burns. They will lean on him when everything collapses. Because when the feminine weeps, it searches for the masculine shoulder. When the world is lost, it searches for a compass. When chaos breaks loose, it searches for a wall that will not move. So let them misunderstand you. Let them fear your clarity. Let them insult your strength. You weren't made to be understood by the soft. You were made to hold the line for those who can't, to rise when others hide, to walk into fire and come out carrying others. That is what it means to be a man. Masculinity is not dead. It is waiting, waiting in the silence, waiting beneath your distractions, waiting in your clenched jaw, your restless nights, your urge to break something just to feel alive again. It's not asking you to destroy. It's asking you to build. Build discipline, build truth, build peace inside your own chaos, so that you become the one people run to when the storm begins. Not because you were perfect, not because you never fall, but because when you do fall, you get back up, harder, clearer, quieter. That's the kind of man the world cannot control. That's the kind of man the world needs. The masculine is not toxic. It is sacred. It is forged. It is returning. And when it does, everything will change. Not through violence, not through revenge, but through quiet, unshakable presence. The masculine doesn't demand respect. It simply becomes the kind of force the world cannot live without.